I grab the bike and I'm going to go back down the road I came because it's closer to town. And the guy's like, shoots another round. He's like, go that way. Cause he knows it's got to take me an hour to get up and back rather than like 20 minutes back. Right.
Well, dude, thank you for letting us do this. Episode 2 of All for One. Johnny Campbell, Baja legend. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, thanks, Trey. I'm super stoked to be able to be on episode 2. And, I know you're probably still working things out, getting things smoothed out for this thing. And so I'm a perfect guinea pig.
That's what I told Kiefer. I'm like, yeah, you're my first episode for sure.
Awesome.
No, I'm excited. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is, there's a lot of podcasts and things like that, but really I just want to have a chance to talk to some of my friends that have done amazing things, have done good things, but more than anything are really great people. And I knew I was coming out here for some testing, and you're one of the first people to pop into my mind. So, and I'm a little bit removed from the off-road side. So yeah, I wanted to get to know a little bit about you in a way that I probably wouldn't if I wasn't to do this. So, I guess to get things rolling, what started the Johnny Campbell experiment with motorcycling?
Well, I grew up in a home with my dad raced. He raced like we call them Grand Prix. It's like kind of like a longer motocross. He was just an amateur racer, nothing special, kind of a weekend warrior style, but he loved racing. And so and when I was a little kid, I didn't get my first bike till I was 9, and it was a 78 XR75 Honda, of course. And, I just loved going to the desert. We went camping and then we'd go to the races, and, I just running around the pits and stuff, and, started my 2-wheel like passion was when I was young, like a lot of us, and so that really started my motivation and passion for dirt bikes.
That's cool. So kind of like all desert right from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, you can out here in California, it's almost all desert where we ride. No matter if you're on a motocross track or you're off-road riding, it's kind of desert. And it's kind of the West Coast is kind of interesting for off-road because it's a place where we have actually open land it's an open public land that we can go camping, riding, and they have competition racing on this open land. So in California, it's normal for our lifestyles to your parents have a motorhome or a van, and you go to the desert on the weekend with all your toys and off-road vehicles, and you go ride around the desert.
Yeah.
That's it's like a lifestyle here.
Yeah.
And there's, that's why Southern California is one reason it's such a mecca. It's not just motocross or the good weather, but it's like you have, anywhere from LA or San Diego, within 2 hours, you could be in the desert riding your off-road vehicle,
Yeah, I've noticed that just from people that we've gotten to know just locally here. It's like they really don't have much to do with motocross, but they're still going to go to Glamis, Rocketio Wells on a holiday weekend and go hang out with their family and ride quads and ride motorcycles. So.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because there's hundreds of thousands of acres of legal off-road areas in California, even though it's always a battle, for public land use and stuff. And sometimes we lose land, and it kind of stinks, because then we're just like, okay, we're getting like smashed down. So that's a big fight for the advocates, and I really have a lot of respect for those people that advocate for off-road, whether it's you're jeeping or riding a dirt bike, to keep those lands open. It's like, I can, like I tell people like, oh, I thought the desert was, you only go to Ocotillo or you do this. And I'm like, no, it's like, I could literally go to Victorville and ride to Las Vegas on perfectly open trails,
Yeah.
So you have to know where like the Mojave Preserve is, and you don't go inside the park there, and there's, legal trails and stuff, but it's a way of life out here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me, the motocross side, Oklahoma, yeah, we have a lot of land, but there's not a lot of really that type of riding. But it's pretty cool for me because you can tell like that it's almost a part of the culture here in Southern California, just motorcycling in general.
Yeah.
So did you ever gravitate towards motocross at all? Or was you just strictly desert guy?
Well, when I was, even still, I love motocross and I love watching it. But like when I grew up in a small beach town called San Clemente, there wasn't like, it was difficult to go to a track or riding because it was pretty far away, And when I was in my generation, when I was growing up like a teenager in the 80s, it's like a lot of tracks were closing. There wasn't like practice tracks like there are now. There's so much opportunity now.
Yeah.
It's like now I live in Murrieta and I could go 5 different tracks within under an hour.
On any given day.
Any given day.
Yeah.
And, one might be 5 minutes from my house and, Glen Helen's only an hour. So it's like you can go any given day and ride your dirt bike, which is amazing. But like when I was growing up in San Clemente, I grew up in a hardworking family. My dad was a grading contractor, small business. My mom worked at a bank. And we didn't have like a ton of resources or money to like go, buy new machines all the time or whatever. But and it was, like I said, it was difficult. It's like when I turned 16, I go, okay, cool, I can drive. And so I, take the family van and go ride out to De Anza or Paris or somewhere, or come out to Elsinore to go riding something, But it's like I said, we didn't have a lot of money and it was like hard. And so what I did was I like kept all my money. I'd work after school. I would hoard all my money and then buy a new tire so I can go racing that weekend.
Yeah.
So I didn't ride too much during the week at all, hardly ever. And so I'd ride on the weekend because I was going to school and working. And I did start racing some motocross and was introduced to true motocross like when I was about 16. So before that, it had been like Grand Prix and riding in the desert or some of those desert race or something like that. But I had a friend that worked for my dad. His name was TJ, Tom Jones, and he knew motocross because he came from District 6 in New Jersey. And so he started, hey, let's go to Carlsbad. Let's go race Saturday motocross. Let's go to Paris, let's race, So I started, he'd take me there so I could ride actually motocross. And my heroes were like Johnny O'Mara, Ricky Johnson, David Bailey.
Yeah.
These guys were Honda guys and they were just like, that was it, And like, my probably as a teenager and kid, my favorite all-time like historic memory is those guys just kicking butt on the world in Majura in Italy.
Yeah.
At the Nations. And so it was pretty awesome, having looking up to those guys, and then, fast forward a whole bunch of years, it's like, those guys are my friends. I can, message them and they'll actually answer or something, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. For me, like I even that same era, 96, 97, I was 6, 7 years old, but I'm watching Terra Firma and, I'm obviously a huge McGrath fan.
Yeah.
And my hometown guys, Raynard and Cooper and things, but there was this guy, I'd get the new VHS, parents had a motorcycle dealership, and you'd get a new VHS and you'd go home and you'd like rip it to shreds and stuff it in to see what was next, and Terra Firma 3 and this guy comes on the intro and he's just doing like 900 miles an hour in the desert. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? He's on an XR, and it was you. And, I don't even think that I like knew your name at that point, but I think I probably rode, like you're super stretched out on this big XR.
Yeah.
I think I probably went to the track and like stretched out, not realizing that, you're probably not doing that on a straightaway at a motocross track. But to me, like you're in that same category as those guys, the Johnny O'Maras and the McGraths and Ricky Johnson and all these types of guys. So I think, for a lot of people too, your Baja success and just all around. I mean, there's been so much that you've done. What do you find to be one of the most fulfilling parts of your career? Was it all the Baja success? Is there another point in your career that really sticks out?
Yeah. Racing of course was, there's obviously years and decades of history and all this, and it would take us hours to unpack everything, but Baja was my focus. I was introduced to Baja when I was a late teenager. My wife's uncle, Craig, was racing down there, and he was kind of my hometown hero, racer and stuff. And so he took me down there, and I pre-ran the course with him one year, and I'm like, I got to do this. This is awesome, and because I love to ride a long time. And that was getting back to the motocross thing. It's like I went to motocross races, and you'd ride a little bit, practice, and then you do a moto, and then you'd have to wait all day and do another moto. And I was kind of like,
30 minutes of track time.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to ride a lot because I don't get to ride during the week.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of gravitated me toward off-road. But to get to your question is like, winning in Baja when I started the string of like Baja 1000 wins, and that was like the pinnacle event. I was mentored by a gentleman named Bruce Ogilvie, who a lot of people are aware worked for American Honda for a long time. And he actually passed away when in 2009 from a big fight with cancer. But he mentored me for a long time. And the Baja thing was, we shared the same passion. And it was such a big deal, a big goal. And Honda had a great effort with pit support for privateers and everything. And so once we started winning and I got the string going together, and I'm like, okay, I have to do this until I could beat Larry Rossler's record, and Rossler was like a goal. He was a target, because he had 10 Baja 1000 wins. And so obviously it takes a long time to do that. And Larry is the king of Baja and mad respect. But so racing Baja was my high priority. It was a pinnacle when I was able to win races down there. And I felt like I was like, doing what I was put on this world to do.
Yeah. And
aside from that, after my lengthy career of racing down there, I took the off-road team satellite under JCR Honda, and Honda blessed that. And so then I was like, okay, you're a racer, you knew what you're doing. Oh, now you're a business owner, a team manager, a toilet cleaner, a shop sweeper. You're doing everything. And just like, oh my gosh, now what am I doing? What did I do? And so it took a long time for me to really get my footing as a team manager, mentor, how to build champions,
Yeah.
But it was in my upbringing and my training that I did with Bruce, and he showed me how to do all that stuff, and Honda gave us that opportunity. So long story, I'm running on, but the pinnacle of the latter years of my career with Honda was being involved with the Dakar project.
Yeah.
And being involved with the bike development, which I was also trained by Bruce with bike development. And then taking that to the next level, mentoring Ricky Brayback, and then foreseeing that to success in 2020 when he won the overall.
Yeah.
So that was huge.
Yeah, that was actually one of my follow-up questions to this is I know you have, 11, I believe there might be more. I know 11X with the Baja 1000.
Yeah.
And that's a huge accomplishment, but I just wonder how much your time with Ricky, your time with the Dakar team, developing this bike from the ground up, does that rival all of that Baja success for you?
It really does, because I know how I feel personally with the emotions.
Yeah.
And this fly in my face. No. But I winning Baja as much success as we've had, along with our great team and supporters, that, you know, because it's not when you win, sometimes you can do it on your own once, but you can't repeat it, you know?
Yeah.
And so you got to have a team around you. And so I share those victories with all those teammates, Steve Hingeveld, Bruce, our whole pit squad. But I know the Dakar thing was the next step. It was the next thing on the world stage. It wasn't just Southern California, Baja, you know, success. It was more like, it's like God put me in a position to facilitate something greater. And that was, guess what? You're going to help develop a works machine.
Yeah.
You know, and which is, you know, that CRF 450 Rally it's the Formula One of off-road motorcycles. I mean, that machine is so specialized, and being involved with that from stage one in 2012 all the way to now is huge, you know, for me, and we're still going.
Yeah.
Still work to do.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you know, Ricky was put in my path, you know, and then being able to build a relationship with him and gain trust with him and have him, you know, be attracted to, you know, my personality, and, you know, because it takes like a meshing, right?
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you can't just mentor.
You can't force that.
You can't force
Yeah.
that, and you can't mentor everybody. But, you know, and Ricky's quite opposite of me. It's like he's a big dude. He speaks his mind. He's, you know, very vocal on some things. But I've seen Ricky now over the last 6-7 years mature, you know, to where, yeah, he can hold his tongue now. He can,
Yeah.
you know, he knows what to say now and not just, you know, this or that. So, you know, Ricky's learned a lot. He's matured, and he is the best in the world at what he does. There's nobody that can come to the United States and beat him in any desert race, or, you know, and when he goes on the world stage with the rally stuff, it's like he is always one of the top contenders, you know, and now he's won the Dakar twice.
Yeah.
So the guy's incredible, you know?
Yeah. I remember the first time that I actually saw the rally bike. Ricky had just won, or maybe he just podiumed, I think. Would have been in 2019. You guys came to San Diego Supercross, and the rally bike was there. I think he came out opening ceremonies, and I just remember looking at the machine and just like, it was amazing.
What is this thing?
This Frankenstein machine.
There's a TV set in front of it. What are you doing?
It was beautiful though. Like the way the whole thing was crafted, it was just like, wow, this is peak racing, you know, for I mean, what we do, obviously AMA Supercross, motocross, peak racing, but we're really constricted as far as what we can do with production rules. And so to see a machine that's like really crafted is really cool for me. And I know that, you know, Honda had all this success early on in Dakar, and then kind of disappeared. And so, you know, for me, the reason I asked that question is it seems like to me from the outside that you being a part of this kind of like resurrection of HRC into Dakar with Ricky, it's just like this sweet concoction that's got to be rewarding for you.
Yeah, it's a sweet season. You know, I call it a season, and season in life, not just a race season or a year, right? This is a season you know, and now it's been going for over a decade, you know, and so yeah, I'm completely in awe and honored and humbled that this kid from San Clemente that, you know, got to this point in this level in off-road motorcycle racing and industry, that, you know, hey, I grew up 150 yards from the ocean, and I surfed every day, but I was no good. You know, and I wasn't even a very good dirt bike racer until, you know, some things started clicking until I was like 19 or 20. So yeah. So I'm humbled.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty cool for me. And one of the things that I really admire about you, and kind of like your generation, the generations before you, is your ingenuity. Like, you know your motorcycle. Like
Mm.
I think that's an art that's probably been lost in the last probably 20 years. You know, you buy a really from the showroom floor a pretty factory level machine, where in your time, you're not buying really a factory level bike from a dealership. You really got to get creative and
Mm.
um, longevity and all these things that you've got to really put your mind to. And so I admire that about your generation of racer that has this machine, and it's not just about them riding it and perfecting their technique in riding it. It's about understanding
Mm.
what's this bike going to do? How am I going to make it better?
Yeah.
Do you think that skill of having to refine your knowledge of the bike and keep trying to refine this thing, do you think that helps you grow as an athlete? And do you think that's something that's missing in this current generation of racers?
Yeah, it's a huge evolution, right? I mean, this is our you go from the 70s to the 80s and the 90s, the 2000s. It's like you see the evolution of the machines getting better and us learning, as humans, learning the engineering part, and as a racer, how to relay that type of information to the engineer and then come back and, so it's like a partnership with those guys, right? It's like they could do stuff that you don't know how to do, but you do stuff they don't know how to do, right?
Yep.
But the question is, like, you had to actually kind of engineer stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, thanks to guys like yourself also, that the newer machines and stuff are just so advanced and so much tuned in, compared to what we rode back then. So it's almost like there's a little less to do, and maybe like a rider doesn't have to learn all this stuff because the thing's already done.
It's already in this
right?
window, like,
Right.
so I don't really have to do anything.
So the pioneering stage, that pioneering stage had a steep curve, right? Learning. Oh man, the bikes are so good. So now it's not as steep a curve.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that, we're on the verge of more stuff developing. I mean, look at what we've done with electronics and the FI in the last just few years.
Yeah.
The bikes are way more technology advanced than, say, the 07 CR 450.
Yeah.
Even
though you, Kiefer.
which was an amazing motorcycle.
Yeah.
So yes, I think there's some stuff lost because the youth we've been able to, like, help them.
Yeah. Turnkey. Here you
go. You don't need to worry about that. We've
Yeah.
already done that
Yeah.
decades before, right? And the years before. So we fixed all this.
Yeah.
But more things happen. Other problems come along because we're humans and we're not making a perfect machine.
Yeah.
And so other problems are created. And so we have to find solutions. And so to me, it's important. It does drive me crazy a little bit because, I lost my father at a young age, and it's like, if I wanted to do this, I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and there was nobody that was going to do it for me, and even going off-road racing, it's not like, I didn't have the talent to go motocross racing. I just didn't.
Yeah.
But I did have some talents to do this. And if I worked hard, I can achieve this. But along with that is you had to do a lot of stuff on your own, or be taught from somebody before you, that generational passing to show you how to achieve that. And that's exactly where my career was. It's like, I got my foot in the door at Honda, and guess what? You're racing that, an XR 600, an air-cooled kind of trail bike. And you're going to race against, 2-stroke 500s and stuff that was, lighter, faster, whatever. Well, that was exactly what the intent that God had for me, because it's like, you need to learn how to make these bikes work. And that's going to take some work. It's going to take a lot of time and effort and failures and overcoming obstacles. And so that's what I was trained to do, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was a product of my mentor,
Yep.
you know, and I really believe in mentorships.
Yeah, man, it takes people to bring you up into that knowledge, I think,
Yeah.
that really can pass that on.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I had that in my character is that I really listened.
Yeah.
I was slow to speak and I just listened and then thought. I thought about it rather than going, you know, opening my mouth and this doesn't work. Forget this. This, you know, it's like, no, how does this work?
Yeah.
You know, how do we fix, you know, this from falling off the motorcycle, or this for breaking in the engine, or this, how do we get rid of this heat?
Yep.
You know, so I listened and I learned from my mentor, Bruce. I learned from other riders. I learned from machinists. I learned from technicians, you know. I enjoy listening.
Yeah. 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 Be a sponge, right?
Yeah.
Like just, it's hard. I think, you know, it's easy to get insecure and want to throw your thoughts in the ring.
Yeah.
But man, you learn so much from just shutting up.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
You know, for you, like, you know, I guess for me to say, I've got a son now, and I think my natural instinct is I want to make his life easy. Like I don't want him to like have the hardship that I did, you know. And not that my life was so difficult, but I'm really trying to fight against that urge, you know, because I really want him to be able to learn and to know, to soak things up. You know, Preston, your son, just had a huge weekend.
Yeah.
Reno to Vegas.
Yeah.
Or Vegas to Reno.
Yeah. Las Vegas to Reno. They went north.
Sorry. You can tell how big of an off-road guy I am.
It's all good.
What steps for you? Like, what did you do with Preston to go like, okay, this is what I want him to know? Because for me, like, I'm really wrestling with how do I, not just with my son, but like the next generation, like I really want them to take on these lessons. And not that I know everything, but I just think, man, there's so much value that I have from hardship, adversity, and then having to figure things out. So what have you done with Preston? And just, I mean, obviously with Ricky and a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is there any key points you have in pointing the next generation forward?
Yeah, I do. You know, personal experience with my own son, Preston, was, you know, my dad was, step back to my father's, like, I saw my dad was hardworking and he did a lot for us when we were kids. And he, you know, and he actually showed me mechanical things. And so I, you know, not everybody has a mechanical aptitude. I get that. It's not in their wheelhouse. You know, God designed us all differently, and thank God, because it'd be boring if we were all the same. So the one thing I did with my kids, and not just Preston, but Paris, my daughter, is I allowed them to experiment to find their passion and what they were good at. I allowed them to follow whatever was in their heart. You know, it's like Preston, he tried baseball, he tried soccer, he tried, you know, surfing, he tried all sorts of different activities, and he kept gravitating back to two wheels. I'm like, oh man, here we go. It's like another one, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like, you know, and then Paris was the same way. It's like she raced mountain bikes, she tried surfing, she did a lot of soccer, you know. But one thing that was really special was that she loved being challenged academically. And so she gravitated toward that. And now she's a school teacher.
Yeah.
You know, Preston gravitated toward two wheels, and now he's a professional off-road racer.
Yeah.
And so, allow your kids to follow their passion, and don't stop that. Don't block that. And it might not be what you like.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing where I see a lot of parents making the wrong decisions. And, you know, like in our industry, it's like mini bike racing is gnarly, you know, and you see a lot of parents that are super passionate about it and they burn their kids out.
Yeah.
You know, that fun time on the dirt bike doesn't become so fun anymore when you're getting, you're being forced to do this. Let me tell you, parents, the road to success for motocross and racing is very, very narrow.
Yeah.
And I instilled in my kids to work hard and work toward your goals, work toward your passion. But one thing that I never did for my kids was push them into something.
Yeah.
I never said, you're going to race motorcycles. You're going to race mountain bikes. You're going to surf. I never did that. I always backed off and allowed my kids to follow their heart. And I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here I have two kids that aren't afraid to work. They worked hard. Paris went through 4 years university, got her teaching credentials. She's a teacher. She's, living life. And Preston's been through all sorts of adversities, racing already at a young age, and overcoming terrible injuries, and stuff. But he loves the motorcycle industry, and then I allowed the kids to fail.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, huh?
I allowed them to fail because it's like what you mentioned. It's like, I don't want them to, my kid to, I want to give them my best.
Yeah.
You really do. And it's hard for us because we love them so much. But it's the same analogy as, how God looks at us and how he allows us to fail. And how are we going to grow and build perseverance, build endurance if we don't have those adversities? What if it was easy all the time?
Yeah.
Whatever. Easy.
Yeah.
That does not build character and
No.
does not build strong people.
Yeah.
And so let your kids fall down.
Yeah.
Let the leash out, people, because when you hold the leash too tight, it's going to restrict them. Let them have some freedom. Be safe, but let them have some freedom so that they can experiment and figure out, their direction.
Yeah. I don't know where I heard this, but it was a term of let them fail safely. It's like,
Yeah.
I want, like, my daughter's, standing up now and like falling down all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so hard for me to not just catch her every time.
Yeah.
But I guess if she's on a ladder, I probably need to jump in.
Yeah, exactly. You can cushion those bumps and bruises and stuff, but you got to let them get out there and fail. It's like Preston, just mechanically. I got to a point like when I'm running my race team and stuff, and he was wanting to race. He goes, "I want to do this, Dad. I want to race. I want to race mini bikes." He was doing some motocross and stuff, like going to Mammoth and doing the qualifiers. And I'm like, "Look, buddy," I go, "I've been doing this a long time. If you're going to do this, you're going to work on your own bike and you're going to figure this out." By the time he was 17, he was tearing into 4-stroke motors and doing
that's
valve
crazy.
jobs.
Yeah.
He had a mechanical aptitude.
Yep.
There's no doubt.
Yep.
But I allowed him to go in and fail and break stuff and get mad and, break the clutch hub or, do stuff like that so that he can figure out how tight he needs to make that bolt.
Yeah.
You know, just as a small analogy.
Yeah. Yep.
So you got to let him fail.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge, man. It's so hard for me. I'm like, oh man,
it's difficult. It's difficult.
But I think there's a lot of value, and I know what adversity has done in my life, and I would not be, not that I'm anything great, but I would not be who I am even close without the difficult things. Yeah. And I'm actually kind of scared to think of who I would be had I got everything that I'd kind of hoped and dreamed for.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
One of the qualities too that is so impressive to me about you is this relationship with Honda. How many years is that? It's plus 30 at this
32.
point. 32, yeah. Over that time, I'm sure there was times where you're like, man, I could probably go somewhere else. What advantage did you have in that loyalty? And what do you think a younger generation could learn from that loyalty? I think that's something that's really lost at this point. It's on to the next thing. What can me.
Yeah. It's today's society is really built on a lot of self-serving. And that doesn't really have to do as much of the loyalty part, but it does in a sense,
Yeah.
right? I had, when I came into Honda, American Honda, I started racing for them in 92. And I was 21. I was just like, I love racing Mexico. I'm riding these old clapped out CR 250s and, and got to meet Bruce, got to meet Crippa, got to meet Chuck Miller and these guys. And it was just like, but that generation at American Honda was so incredible family orientated because they came through like the 80s and I got there in the 90s. So they'd been together for a long time. And so there was like this generation that was so solid and the company was in a much different place, I think. But I think that was more like society,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how corporations were and stuff. But man, the family atmosphere of, all these people, it's like you met in American Honda, like Bruce had a real knack at like relationships with people and how just to be friends with them. And so racing Mexico and Baja, you can't pay 100 people to go down there.
Yeah.
You have to have volunteers. And so a lot of the Honda associates were volunteer pit people. And so they had, and some of them were old racers or old Baja racers or desert racers, or, they came from some sort of enthusiast.
Yeah. That passion.
They were enthusiasts for dirt biking.
Yeah.
And so we had this big family, and it just drew me in. And so I knew early on, I'm like, wow, Bruce and Chuck, they were desert racers and they made a career at Honda. I'm just going to follow that path, and I did to a sense. It's like when I first got my foot in the door there, it's like, well, we don't really have any paid racers in the off-road team. As a matter of fact, there's actually nobody in the off-road team. It's just Bruce with his passion, and he'll have Chuck and Ashcraft go ride this bike and they'll pay their expenses and we'll go ride, So when I got my foot in the door, it's like Bruce goes, look, I'm not going to be able to pay you as an off-road racer unless you come in the shop and help me, So I'm like, I'll do that.
Sweet.
I'm, packing grease under my nails, working on cars and doing construction, whatever, just so I can go race. So, so I got hired as a temp for like $14 an hour working in the shop. Then when I went and tested or raced, I was under like a race contract because the temp agency wouldn't insure somebody riding a dirt bike. So then they pay me like $150 a day to go test or go to a race. Right. So that's how it all started. Right. And so I assumed what I was going to do with my career was I would race and then I would take a job at Honda and I would work and
kind of settle in and
take my corporate job and do that. I was totally down for that. And as things evolved and things changing and stuff with the company and whatever, and myself maturing and changing and being challenged of like, hey, you ever thought about having your own race team? You ever, it's like, well, no. It's like, well, I went through these big crossroads when I was about 36 to 38 years old, trying to, I know my career's like at the end of racing.
Yeah.
What do I do next? Do I stay here? Do I do this job? Do I, and so I ended up, fortunately, Gerga and Miller and Ogilvy, they go, it's, Bruce was battling cancer. So he wasn't, I think he was tired of taking care of the off-road team at that point, and he'd raised me for 17 years to do this.
Yep.
So I go, this is what I want to do. I want to take the team outside so I could go get our own sponsors. I could have my own schedule. And plus the other thing that I was burned out on was commuting to Torrance.
Yeah.
Torrance is logistically living outside of that LA area. Like it was a mess trying to get in there, and I was, after 12 years of commuting, I was done, So I wanted to just start doing some things my way and stuff, and then, Bruce was happy to pass the torch, and which was a big deal because he'd been running the team since the early 80s, and but yeah. And so since then, Honda's had me under contract for a race team. And then I built relationships with Japan over those years. And now I have contracts to help them with development of rally machines, and go to Dakar and serve the team there. And so, and now I'm helping with production testing with you.
Yeah.
So I think, I've grown into this place with this kind of new generation of American Honda. I've grown into this place where Johnny's seen a lot in 3 decades with the company, and he's developed relationships, but he's also developed himself as an evaluator, as a business owner, as a race team owner, race team management. He knows how to win races, and so I, by far, I'm not, if I'm not the right guy for the job, they can move me on, but I don't want to do that. There's a lot of work to do, and I love it. You know, so yeah, 32 years and keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I didn't plan on asking this question, but it just kind of came up because, I think on any level, when you're racing at a high level, that day's going to stop. Whether you're multi-time Supercross champion, multi-time Baja champion, or District 37 champion, the day's going to stop at some point. And I think what I'm learning is that everyone at all levels goes through some sort of identity crisis in that point.
Yeah.
I know I certainly did. Yeah. And it was difficult, especially the first year. And still today, there's still these moments where I'm kind of pulled, and
I understand.
And you're trying to figure out, where do I fit in the world now that I'm not a racer? But, and I think this is true for everyone in the world. They just experience it when they're 80, and they're done working and all of that. Yeah. What advice do you have for anyone going through that transition?
Well, it's real challenging, like you mentioned, because as a racer, you have a hyper focus of what you're doing, and you have to be focused because of the risks we're taking, right? And you love it. I mean, that's what as a child, it was my dream to race dirt bikes, ride and race dirt bikes. I never thought it'd go to the level that it did. I always thought I'd have a job and I'd ride dirt bikes on the weekend, but it was like, so the challenge in what I went through, I'll just share my experiences, is that when I was racing, let's say in my pinnacle years, I felt were like from 28 years old to 32 years old, like this was like, I was really doing what I was meant to do on this earth. Right?
Yeah.
And then you have a big one, and then you go, okay, I got kids now. So you get a little inkling, and then you start hearing voices a little more and more. It's like, okay, I got to figure out what's next, really difficult, because once you let go of that and you're not focusing on that, and you feel your body changing, you can't keep up with the 25-year-olds because you're 38, and you don't want to take that chance through that rock garden because, you might fall off and it hurts. And I listen to that, I listen to that voice, and I go, okay, I've won 11 Baja 1000s. At the end of that race, I was like, I know this is it. I go, that's it. And it is emotional. But to transfer into something else, you have to, I had to work for it. Yeah. I had to go, okay, look at all my assets. I got a whiteboard up with some buddies, and we threw stuff up there, and, and it just kept circling back to, what do you know? What are you good at? What do you, and I knew racing. I knew bike development. I knew how to win Baja. I knew all these things. And Bruce had always trained me to be the boss, for that small off-road department, And so you have to believe that, and you have to just go for it. You have to have faith to do it. And it's still squirrely. Like, I feel like I'm squirrely sometimes, like I don't know what I'm doing. Who am I to tell this guy what to do? But I think if you just stay the course and you work through these things, you keep your mindset on it, you can accomplish it.
Yeah.
You could do it. I mean, now with JCR, we've been through since '08, which is, I don't know, 17 years or something like that. 16, 17 years. So, and we're still here. We're still, doing what we love to do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You got to move your passion to what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, for me, it was important to go like, there's obviously some discipline and a skill set that allowed you to kind of succeed in one area. How do I like refocus that into something else?
Yeah.
And it's kind of moved into this test role, and I'm sure at some point that's going to change again. But
sure.
But it is difficult, and I think that's probably okay too, to know like this is a big transition, and that's fine.
It is. It's a big transition, and you're kind of naive because you don't know. It's like going in business for yourself was just like, oh my gosh, there's all this other stuff. It's like running the Baja team. That was the easy part, and it was a lot of work, but that was the easy part. It's like, oh, you gotta deal with
now I'm doing spreadsheets,
books. You got to manage this guy. Oh, wow. Other athletes have different characters than I have. They're way more difficult to handle than I am. Bruce had it easy, so, And those are those things where getting back to kids is like, God goes, okay, I'm going to bless you with this, but there's going to be some hurdles. And there's been fail points along this journey.
Yeah.
But it's built character, and you learn, and so you mature from it.
Yep.
You build endurance.
Yeah. So I have a couple more questions. For me, faith is a really big deal. My whole life has been built around my Christian faith, and so I know that's a big part of your life. And just curious, I guess kind of a two-part question. One is, how did you kind of come to this kind of faith? And then what's important about that to you? And then also, as an athlete, what do you think the role is of your faith in athletics? So I know that was a lot to ask, but I'm curious.
I grew up in a Christian home. My mom was a really strong believer. And, as a small kid, I remember going to church or Bible study fellowship, and she'd throw me in the kids' room, and then she'd do her women's Bible study and whatever. And then my dad kind of came along, like, I think when I was young, like he came along, and then they got involved with some small community churches and built some relationships. And then within that, I built friendships, and then we went to youth group and we did some stuff like that. But, I remember my parents sending me to this summer camp for a week down in Vista. It's called Green Oaks, and it was a Christian camp and stuff. And I remember, really praying and giving my life to the Lord when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And of course, it's never been, we're not perfect, just because you're a believer, it's like, you're not saved. You're still in this world with all these, flaming swords and everything coming at you. And you have the same hurdles as a non-believer does, but what's been my faith and my beliefs and Christ have been a foundation, for me to always lean on, always be grounded, because that's really the thing that's, he's the same today, yesterday, forever, right? And so that's where I see a lot of non-believers or people that don't believe is they fail. They don't have this foundation to plant their feet on.
Yeah.
And so Christ has always been there for me to just bounce back no matter what you're going through. He's always there. You're never alone. It's the assurance. And then moving, and there's so much to unpack there, but but moving into athleticism and sports and the risks that we take on the bikes, for me, it was really important that, that I believe because what we did is super risky.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had multiple friends die in Mexico, and stuff, and die in Africa and all sorts of stuff. And well, it's like, okay, life can be taken like that. When you're younger, you don't think about it as much. When you get older, you start thinking about it more.
Yeah.
Because now I'm looking at the other end of the tape measure and go,
it's pretty short.
It's almost there. I'm almost gone. Well, it's like, gone what? What do you do? Where are you going? And for me, it's always been very, very clear that, this life is short and there's life beyond this life, here. It's like having eternal life in heaven with Christ and having that assurance that's like, I don't want to burn in hell. What's the alternative? You're going to not believe or build this, have a relationship with God because you don't want to believe, it's like, well, guess what? There's so many, there's just so much that always points my heart toward him.
Yeah.
That I just don't know how people don't have faith, because I've just seen miracles. I've seen my friends healed. And I want to, I want to be in paradise. I don't want to be burning in flames, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, so why not? And guess what? If you can show me anything that's better today in this world than having the hope of being with Christ and being in heaven someday, why not?
Yeah.
What's the purpose, and that's the thing. It's like, why are we here? Why are we on this earth? Why, I always loved having, it's like, what's the purpose? Why are we here? Why do we have to go through these challenges and these pain and these hurt and stuff? It's like, okay, we got a broken world. People aren't perfect, but we're here to serve God, and he wants a relationship with us. Yeah. He wants a relationship with everybody. He created us as humanity, and he wanted to share that. That's why he created us with a free will. And so it's just been, very important for me to take, I believe this is on my career of racing and my demographic of off-road racing or whatever fame I have or whatever you want to call it, is that's the platform that God allowed me to have to be able to share, that the love of Christ that he has for us,
Yeah.
And so, having an opportunity to speak publicly, even like on this podcast is huge. It's like, God gave me a platform. People, they love off-road racing or they love Honda or Johnny Campbell or whatever, but it's like, my platform is this.
Yeah.
I won these races, not because I was a badass, not because I was the best in the world, but God allowed me to do this so that I can share the gospel with other people.
Yeah.
And when people are hurting, and be there as a pillar,
yeah,
because of my faith that I have in Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome, man. I think, in the beginning of my career, I think, it was like number one importance was like win a race and like say something on a microphone. And I think that shifted for me because, I had seen so many people saying things and then their lives didn't really kind of match that. And I think what I've seen from you, Johnny, is you just, you live it, man. And there's a genuineness and, I don't know. I think for me, like that's the proof in it is just your character and your quality. And, it's really special for me to see someone like yourself as a believer living that out. And, I think this is always going to be a controversial topic, right?
Sure.
But, I think it's important that we do share our faith. And, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. Me too.
as a racer, there's I got a lot of heat for saying anything on a microphone, those kinds of things.
Sure.
What are some things that you think a Christian athlete could do? What do you think holds value as a Christian athlete to people outside?
What I think is words are words.
Yeah.
You have to walk the walk. And what I mean by that is you don't have to walk, obviously you don't have to walk around and, saying this or that or whatever. That's lame. I mean, you can get that all the time, right? And then all of a sudden this guy says this, and then he goes over there and, he's doing something that's, totally against the grain,
Yeah.
So it's like words don't mean as much to me, for sure. Like in certain situations, you got to speak it, right?
Yeah.
But unless you're walking it, then the words don't mean much.
Yep.
Right. There is, and as believers, we are far from perfect. We're still broken, and we're still, dealing with battling sin. The only, the difference is we're forgiven for it.
Yeah.
And we got a direct path to the man. But, so, it's just like, you just got to live it. You have to walk the walk, and, your actions are the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because once you say this, and people know, oh, he's a Christian.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a believer. Oh, he's a,
Johnny Campbell, 1997.
Yeah.
They're going to find something.
Yeah. They'll find something where you were like some dirtbag, or you did something bad or whatever. Right. And, and it's hard to toe the line perfectly.
Yeah.
This world is bad. There is some terrible things here, and it's easy to sin. It's in our nature. We just do it. I'm a believer. I sin.
Yeah.
I'm a sinner. But it's like, so you have to do your very best. And the very best is just trying to, and to me is what helps is like when you stay engaged,
Yeah.
in the word.
Yep.
When you don't, because I know when I'm not in the word, like consistently, it's so easy to fall off the pace.
Yeah.
Right. And fall off that. But I'm in the word, then my heart's full of that. It's like, what are you going to feed yourself? What are you feeding your body? Or, well, you need to feed your heart. That's your food. And that helps you walk the walk and toe the line.
Yeah.
And I do some terrible stuff, ask Faye,
Yeah, I always tell people, if you really think I'm a great guy, just ask Hannah.
Yeah, it's like
she knows the true side of me.
Yeah. I mean, Faye knows me better than anybody in the world, of course. And we've been married for 31 years. And it's like, it's like I do bad stuff. It's like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And, but you just got to keep going on. You got to keep the fight, keep the good fight. And, but like I said, I think your actions speak tremendously louder than words.
Yeah. And I think, if you look at a lot of people's, resistance to faith, Christianity, really anything is that they've seen a poor example of that.
Yeah, 100%.
I think what most people have had a bad taste in their mouth is such a far cry of who Jesus was and who we're called to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I mean that, and it does break your heart, like when dude, I was not the representation of Jesus right there.
Yeah.
But I mean that's why His grace is so good, and it's for everyone, right? So
it is for everybody. A lot of times they just have to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if sometimes people have to go to the bottom to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, I never had to go to the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just knew it was clear. It was clear to me. It's like this is the way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, I'm not perfect and never claim to be. I'm humbled to be, where I'm at, and hopefully we can just keep it going.
Yeah. Well, cool. I entered the Kiefer episode with a question. I couldn't ask you a question like that because I just want to know what the craziest story in Baja was. Because white kid from Oklahoma, I see Mexico, I'm like, stuff's happening there.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that's just totally been just like sideways? I'm not gonna make it out of this.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Like I tell people, as soon as you cross the border, the adventure begins, right? There's all this preparation you do to go to Mexico or whatever. Got to have your passport, got to have gas in your car, make sure your tires are good, all this stuff, right? But as soon as you cross the border, the adventure begins because Baja especially Baja is a different place, right? It's a whole different country, different world. I love it. It's amazing. But yeah, I mean, I have a world of stories and they keep building, but one specific, right when you asked that question that popped in my mind, so I know I have to tell it, is that, I've been held up at gunpoint, like a full bandito raid, in the middle of nowhere. And, to the point where I was praying and it was done. I was saying my last words, cause it's like, so down there we pre-run the race course, right? You get the course map. You go, okay, I'm going to ride this section. You go down there, and so I'm pre-running up this road we call it Mike's Road. It goes to this remote hotel called Mike's Sky Ranch, and this is 1998 Baja 500. So I leave my truck down at the bottom of the mountain, and my driver's there. And okay, I'll be back in an hour. I'm going to ride this road and come back. So I start going up the road, and when you're pre-running, you're just, you're not, sometimes you pick up the pace when you feel it's safe enough to do. And sometimes you just kind of, okay, I can't see around this corner. I'm going to back off. And so you're always on that mode of looking way ahead. You can see the road turn and go way up there. Okay. You're always looking as far ahead. Okay. Is there dust? And you see anything coming because the roads are open there. So you might run into a car or a horse or something. So I thought I see something up the road. So I start slowing down. I come around the corner. Yeah, there's a guy with a rifle pointed at me. Purple sock on his head. So I'm like already on the decel. It's like, well, I can't just like run him over and he might shoot me, whatever. I stop. Two other guys come out of the bushes. Same purple nylon they must have cut and stole some pantyhose or something. And, we could laugh about it now, but it was like these guys had guns. They had bullets. And, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then they took my bike, they threw it over the embankment, just kind of like down in the vegetation. And then they made me walk up the road and walk over in the bushes. And then so if like more people were coming up the dirt road, they wouldn't see us. So I'm like, okay. So I'm walking up and I'm like, I'm praying and the guy shoots around in the air. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so totally surreal, right? I mean, it's like, this is like an Old West holdup, So I had my fanny pack, my tool bag on, and they made me take that off. I had a little handheld radio, which wasn't any good for that far up. And so one guy's, has a rifle pointed at me, and he's like notioning to me to undo my pants. I'm like, okay, I'm dead, because if they want something different than money or whatever, then I'm gonna fight.
Shoot
right?
me dead.
Yeah. So he sees I don't have any pockets. He's like, and then one guy starts rooting through my fanny pack, and he finds a little wallet I was carrying that had like $500 in it. And cause you always carry money down there, because you might have to pay off a rancher to go through his land, or you might have to get some gas or whatever, right? So the guy finds the money, and they're like, go, go, go. And I start running down to the bike, and I grab the bike, and I'm going to go back down the road I came, because it's closer to town. And the guy's like, shoots another round. He's like, go that way. Cause he knows it's got to take me an hour to get up and back rather than like 20 minutes back. Right. So they still have my fanny pack and my radio. So I just take off. I go up to Mike's Sky Ranch. There's like one caretaker up there. I'm like, hey, banditos, I got robbed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, go. So I take off, go back down to the hill, and I get to my truck. I'm like, I tell my driver I've been robbed, I've been held up. And then some other pre-runners came along, like Rossler, Dan Smith, these old motorcycle guys that were racing trucks by then. I'm like, hey, don't go up there. I just got robbed, you know? So we went and told the military guys that were up at a road block they had going on, like a checkpoint. And I told them on the map where they were, and they went to try to find them. They never found them, whatever. But I was really, it was very difficult. Like I was kind of traumatized for a few months. Like when I'd go mountain bike in the morning, I'd hear something, I'd be like jumpy and stuff. Yeah. But I went ahead and still raced that week and won the race. But it traumatized me for a while. You know, being held at gunpoint is pretty gnarly. Old West.
That's crazy.
And I was really mad though, because some engineers from HGA gave me some titanium tire tools that I carried in there. And those guys had no idea I had some really cool Japanese built titanium tire tools gone. These guys took those and threw them in the bushes, right? Oh man. So
that's awesome.
But that's Mexico. That's Baja. You know, that it doesn't happen very often. And actually there's a lot worse stuff that happens in our country, I think. Yeah, in my opinion, for sure. On a more frequent basis, although there's obviously bad stuff. Yeah. In any big city. But you know, with that happen, and I still go down to Mexico all the time. I go down with my family, and we vacation. We do 4-wheel drive trips. We have a good time, you know. And it doesn't bother me. Yeah. You know?
Yep. Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. And just thanks for being you, man. Thanks for being on episode 2 of All for One. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you.